Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This afternoon we are going to share our memories. We'll share our grief, we'll share our love, but most importantly we're going to share in the celebration of the life of John Perry. My name is Bruce Logan, I'm a civil celebrant, and I'm here to guide you through a time of love and reflection as you remember John and what he meant to you. Now, just before we begin, and I'm sure you've already done so, can I please ask that your mobile phones have either been switched off or on silent, please, because they will ring. Thank you. On behalf of Molly, Phil, Steve, Claire and their families, thank you so much to each of you for attending today and supporting not just the family, but each other with your love. There is, after all, a difficult time. From now on, however, is the time that the family will need you the most. Our being here today, along with tributes, calls, condolences from those who can't be here, combine to express our love and support for each other. So today we're not alone in our grief. Today we'll all be family to each other. I've been asked by the family if I could especially thank Dr. Parnas, John's oncologist, his GP, Dr. Matner, and the nurses and staff at the Lyle McEwen, as well as the palliative care team at Modbury Hospital, whose care, support and compassion has been deeply appreciated by the family, so thank you so much to those people. And condolences today come from Claire and the family in the UK who sadly can't be with us today, but we are in actual fact live streaming to the UK as we speak. So we're able to, Claire's able to hear and everything and see everything that's going on today. I think it would be fair for me to say that during our lives, we meet people who leave footprints on our minds, and they challenge us to see things differently or to question our own personal reality. And then sometimes we meet people who leave footprints on our hearts, and they create a safe place for us to open our own hearts to feel loved and special. And then sometimes, as we take our journey through life, we meet people who leave footprints on our souls. They share themselves with us so profoundly that they touch the very essence of who we are. John has left gentle footprints on the minds, the hearts and the souls of each of you here today. So it's important now that you always remember the special way in which he touched your lives. There's nothing in the world more precious that we can give or get than love. So to honour John properly, we have to sincerely thank him for the abundance of love that he offered and for the wealth of love that exists for him here today. Losing someone so close means that we're often faced with change, and that change can sometimes be painful, as it's everything that changes, including you. Nothing is ever the same again, and nothing can ever really prepare you for coming face to face with and accepting death, especially someone who you've known and loved for so long. But along with your sadness today is a time for a whole host of precious memories, memories that are unique to each of you, and we'll hear about some of those memories in a moment. Our memories are what we use to hold on to things that we are, things that we love, and the things we never want to lose. It's like a precious diary that we all carry around with us. Now, each of you knew and loved John in your own way, so therefore you'll have your own personal and individual thoughts and memories, and these are memories that no one can ever take away from you. So to keep those memories with you always is to remember John, and therefore celebrate the fact that you were privileged to have known him. Each life is worthy of celebration, so as we gather together today to celebrate the impact that John's life had on yours and to learn the impact that he had on others, we honour his memory in a spirit of joy and celebration that will help us to heal. Now, just before we share our memories of John, there's something I feel that we should all try to understand about the relationship that exists between grief and that other human experience, love. If you think about it, you realise that grief simply can't exist except where there's been love. We don't grieve for someone we haven't loved. And our grief is a measure of our love, but it doesn't come with a rule book or time frame. Grief is as individual as you are. So you see, grief is really just love. It's all the love that you want to give but can't. And all of that unspent love then tends to gather up in the corners of your eyes or the lump in your throat or the hollow part of your chest. So you see, Grief is just love with nowhere to go. So give your love a destination and continue to make John a part of your future lives. That way, he's not just a part of your past or your present, and you'll feel a wonderful closeness to him. So we need to make today our way of thanking John for all that he gave and received in the love that you're now grieving for. But of course, John will always be with us because he lives on in our hearts, our minds, through the lives of each of you and everyone who knew him. He's very close to us in spirit, having only gone beyond the sound of our voices and the touch of our hands. And while death brings sadness, we should also try to have a sense of joy for John, who's now entered his new home. And I'm sure he wouldn't want you to grieve in hurt or pain, but rather think of all the joy and the laughter and the happiness that he's given and received and shared. Think of him as someone who has fulfilled his niche, accomplished his task, someone who's left you a better person for having known him, and someone whose life was an inspiration. Now today is about the celebration of John's life, and I'd now like to first invite his friend Jason to share with us. So Jason, please.
Some remarks prepared by my mum. I've known John, Molly and their family since they arrived in Australia, and they quickly took to the lifestyle here, although the weather, is always a little bit hard to handle at first. And over the years, they've become close friends with many parties, dinners and pool parties at various people's houses, which John particularly enjoyed. There's one particular New Year's Eve where Eileen and my mum had said that there was going to be a bathing suit competition, but what the men didn't realise it was them that had to wear the bathing suits. So what you would normally think of as reluctance turned into a bunch of arguments over who was going to get the best jewellery, who was going to get the best makeup, and so on. And there's actually video evidence of this if anybody wants to see it. There's a particular talent, I think, that John had for bringing calm to a conversation. Always a very thoughtful man, and when he spoke, there was generally a fair bit of reverence with which his voice was treated. Always a calming influence. He always knew the right answers, and always made a situation easier to handle. So at the end of the day, there were a lot of good memories together, and my mother believes that John's in good company at the moment. So Ralph will be there with the port. My dad, George, will be there with the sausages on. Anne will be baking bread. Tom will be at the head of the table solving the arguments. And in the end, we'll all be together at some point. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Jason. It is perfectly acceptable to applaud. So well done, Jason. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you. And now I'd like to ask Eileen to share with us, please.
We are all here to celebrate John's life. Being the only girl of 3 brothers, we fratched and fought with each other as siblings do. But as we matured and added partners, we all grew very close and had great respect for each other. Keith and I and our son Graham, aged 8, emigrated to Australia in 1970. I was terribly homesick. John and Molly had talked of following, but took 2 years for them to follow with their children, Philip, Stephen and Claire. I was so relieved, I broke down in tears of relief, as we would have returned to UK if they hadn't come. We had great times together and all looked forward to Mum and Dad joining us, later to be joined by Dennis and Mary and children, Victor and Kathy, and later Ralph and Mary, and children Ruth, David and Francis. We later lost my older brother in 1988, which devastated us all. But we all had good times to look back on, and can only hope that Mum and Dad, Ralph and John, are all now together and catching up on some games of chess, topped up with a good port and Mum's delicious sausage rolls. Cheers, my dears, Ralph used to say. Rest in peace, my lovely kind brother, John. I will miss you forever.
Thank you, Eileen, so much. Beautiful memories. Now, Phil and Deb, please.
I have a poem that I'd like to share with you all. When I am gone, release me, let me go. I have so many things to see and do. You mustn't tie yourselves to me with tears. Be happy that we had so many years. I gave you my love, and you can only guess how much you gave me in happiness. I thank you for the love you each have shown, but now it's time I travelled on alone. So grieve a while for me, if grieve you must. Then let your grief be comforted by trust. It's only for a while that we must part, so bless the memories that lie within your heart. I won't be far away, for life goes on, so if you need me, call and I will come. Though you can't see me or touch me, I'll be near, and if you listen with your heart, you'll hear all of my love around you, soft and clear. And then, when you must come this way alone, I'll greet you with a smile and say, welcome home.
Beautiful. Well done.
Okay,
No, that's right. Oh, good. Thank you all for coming today. Although today is an extremely sad one, it is also a celebration, a tribute to our father's life, a life that touched so many people. For those who don't know, I would like to share with you a brief insight into his journey through life. Here is his story. My dad, John Perry, was born on the 2nd of August 1941 in Bradford, Yorkshire, to Anne and Tom Perry. One of 4 children, sister Eileen, and 2 brothers, Ralph and Dennis. He grew up a creative but mischievous lad, always sporting a band-aid to at least one hand to mask one of his latest adventures, model building mistakes, or just simple accidents to which he was quite accustomed to. His school days moulded his character to a smart, well-dressed young man with a cheery smile, a carefree attitude, and a popular yet easygoing nature. As a teenager, he was very well liked. His easygoing style and happy nature attracted many friends. He enjoyed many good times, holidays and trips to the English coast with his mates. After earning an apprenticeship as a plumber through a local business, he did his time, often lugging a heavy toolbox in his tracks across Bradford and Yorkshire in his little 3-wheeler frisky van. You probably will remember them. The weather was poor and often dreary, plain freezing sometimes, so plumbing, although a good trade to have, was hard work and somewhat open to the challenges of the weather.
One particular holiday to Blackpool with a friend changed his life forever. As he stood waist deep in water, throwing a beach ball back and forth to his friend, he spotted a gorgeous young lady with a big pair of flotation devices. You thought I was going to say something else, didn't you plonkers? But moving on, little did he know he'd crossed eyes with his soulmate, an angel in disguise. At this point, that beach ball took an immediate, physically impossible, mid-air change in direction, landing in front of this beautiful young lady, and with his good looks and cheery smile, captured the heart of young Molly from Leeds. They courted to the sounds of Cliff Richard, Living Doll, which described Mum to a T. And that was 1959. They married at St Martha's Church, West Yorkshire, in 1962. With Dad back on the tools and Mum working as a typist, doing ledger work and accounts, they saved hard. And after living with Mum's mum and Dad in Leeds for 10 months, they had a house built in Shipley, Yorkshire. I was born in '64, followed by Steve in '66 and Claire in '69. A few short years later, Dad's older brother Ralph suggested life as a policeman, which, due to the somewhat harsh life on the tools, sounded quite appealing. After consulting Mum, we moved to London, and after studying and doing the rounds, his days as a London bobby began. He enjoyed his career, the challenges and daily dramas of a policeman's life, often saying that they were the best years of his working life. As a child growing up in the southwest of London, life was good. We had a lily pond down the street, which connected to Wimbledon Common, supplying us with the best array of creatures, frogs and wild rabbits, most of which ended up at home or in the bathtub. How cool was that? Back in Shipley, Dad's older sister Eileen, husband Keith and son Graham decided to move to Australia in search of a better life, away from the grey and often dreary days of Yorkshire. With Dad's adventurous spirit and Mum's quest for a change, this also appealed to them, and a plan was hatched through the family to start a slow migration to Australia. As the moment grew closer, the excitement built. Australia was looking good, was looking for policemen and tradesmen alike. It was at that time that TV stations also began promoting Australia with shows like Skippy the Bush Kangaroo and Flipper, which, although American, translated to beautiful beaches, clear waters, sunny skies, and vast open spaces. The dream was slowly becoming a reality, and before long the Qantas jumbo jet stood before us, a monument to a simple, beautiful country. As we boarded the jumbo, in awe of this magnificent flying machine, both Mum and Dad said goodbye to England and welcomed everything Australia had to offer. From time to time during the flight, we all shared the window seat and marvelled at the sights below. After a while, I noticed Dad writing a letter. With each passing mile, he added a little more. Curiously, I watched momentarily, then resorted back to stealing everybody's complimentary biscuits before lunch. 44 years later, I read that letter. It was written to his mum and dad, describing his feelings of excitement and intrepidation of starting a new life in this beautiful country. We arrived in Australia on the 17th of April 1973 to sunny skies, warm air, and in my case, a stomachache due to the excessive amounts of complimentary biscuits I had eaten during the 22-hour flight. No, truly, that's true. After a brief stay with Eileen, Keith and Graham, Mum and Dad found work. Mum at the university and Dad back on the tools plumbing. Work was plentiful for Dad and better paid in comparison to working for the Australian Police Force. So before long, a house deposit was paid and the family home was built. The Hills hoist stood proudly in the back garden. Many weekends were spent barbecuing on the Safari Companion gas barbecue to the radio tunes of Crocodile Rock, Elton John, and Dancing on a Saturday Night, Barry Blue. And station ads like Graham Douglas Datsun, Up, Up, Up and Away with TAA, and football, meat pies, kangaroos, and of course, Holden cars. Both Mum and Dad worked hard, and before long the house really did become a home, with Dad's feet planted firmly on the patio of his own castle. He soon realised they weren't dreaming. And as promised, slowly the rest of the Perry clan arrived. Dad's Mum and Dad, Dennis and Mary, and Ralph and Mary, with respective families. With the Watson and Perry families once again all united, family card nights, parties, family day trips, and weekend barbies were relished by all. With a quest for adventure and Mum by his side, Dad dabbled in many childhood dreams, trying his hand at flying, boating, and shooting, just to name a few. I'm grateful he was there to enjoy and celebrate my wedding to Deb, my brother Steve's wedding to Alex, and finally my sister Claire's wedding to Andrew, where he gave her away as every father should proudly experience. But his proudest moment yet to come was with the birth of his grandchildren, Brandon, Michaela, and Anna, and with the addition of Zach and Jessica, our family was complete. One of Dad's memorable achievements in life was the day he learnt to fly. And as every pilot knows, it's an amazing feeling. And the first thing he wanted to do was take his Mum and Dad up. Now Gran, she was a little hesitant, but Grandad, in his broad English accent, shouted, "Well then, lad, when are we off?" So the aeroplane was booked, and the following week they took to the skies. It was a sunny Saturday afternoon, and as they climbed to altitude, my Grandad looked around in amazement. Dad, noticing the door on his side was not properly latched, turned sideways, lifted the latch and proceeded to slam it closed. My Grandad, in sheer panic and disbelief, turned and said, "Where are you going, John?" And with laughter, Dad replied, "No way, you silly bugger, I'm right here." I believe Grandad landed that day with a soggy bottom and sweaty palms, but a good day was had by all. I flew as often as I could with my dad. It was our time to bond and enjoy the moment as only father and son can. I loved every minute. We enjoyed tours of Ansett, movie nights in the hangar, and simply hanging out on the airfield. It will never be the same without him. My dad made some wonderful friends through his lifetime and treasured his Wednesday morning coffee chats with good pals from all sorts of interesting backgrounds. Sadly, back in 2009, he was diagnosed with a terminal illness which drew on his enthusiasm for life, but he did not let it beat him. With Mum by his side and the aid of some amazing doctors and nurses, Dad's life was comfortable, and he made the most of his later years, enjoying good times with family and friends as often as possible. Sadly, my dad passed away on the 29th of July. I would like to thank family who have flown from interstate today and who also visited my dad in hospital prior to him passing. Greatly appreciated and much love. Thanks. In closing, on behalf of my family and extended family, words cannot describe this beautiful man who is not only an incredible brother, husband, dad, uncle, and granddad, but an inspiration and mate to us all. He truly believed he was the luckiest guy on earth to share his life with this lovely lady from Leeds, to whom we are forever grateful and honoured to call our mum. We love you, Dad, and are extremely grateful to that chance meeting and holiday romance in the summer of 1959 that lasted a lifetime. God bless you, Dad. Thank you.
Phil, that was awesome. And their beautiful poem, that was absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much, straight from the heart. Now finally, I'd like to ask Steve to share with us. So Steve, please.
Thanks very much for coming today. If you'd have seen the crowd of people, you'd have wondered what all the fuss was about. He was that kind of a person. But I loved him dearly. He's me. There's really no other way to describe this. If I had $1 for every time someone said I was just like my father, I'd be a rich man by now. He was a hard worker, and although my brother spent a lot of recreational time with my dad in pursuits of flying and boating, we worked. We worked at home, we worked in school holidays, in the summer breaks. We worked, and I think at that stage I realised, and he taught me the ethic of working and what it can do for you to make your own choices. He did a lot for me. He did everything for me. I find it difficult to move forward without him, but I know he's given me everything I need to do that. My earliest recollections of my father was Bradford, Yorkshire, as a little kid in a lounge full of people, all having conversation and talking, and my father and his father rising above everybody else in political conversation, and that seemed to that was the tempo of the room, but the room was filled full of love and laughter, and it remained that way for as long as I can remember. When, as a younger man, when I started working with him, the colourful language I learned mostly from my dad, although it never transcended beyond work. to home. It was always kept within a work environment. Words that I wouldn't care to illuminate on at home. And between the two of us, we did good. I learnt the value of money. I learnt what it could do for me and where it could take me. And I think that was probably one of his best lessons, teachings to me. He defined what it was to be a man and what it was to be a father. And I'll take that with me moving forward for my family. He's a hell of a man. There's just no other way to describe this. And later on, once we left the work together and I found my own work, I built my own house. He showed me how to do plumbing layouts. We talked for a long time. He lent me tools. He instructed me on the ways of building, plumbing, and I built my own house. I lived by myself. I was fully independent, and that's the way I wanted it. It gave me choices, which were the teachings of my father that taught me to stand on my own 2 feet and move forward by myself. And like I said, I'd move that forward with my boys, and that's how it'll be. In the last days of my dad's life, me and my brother would spend we lived bedside with my father, and when he woke up and opened his eyes, we were there, we connected, we spoke, and those times are golden for me and always will be. The last few conversations we had, he commented to me how my hands were so rough. Stroking his hands, as often as I could, I'd hold his hand. I didn't want him leaving me alone. And he'd comment on how rough my hands were, which was ironic because for the better part of my dad's life, his hands were rough and cut. And I'd see my parents and I'd have 9 band-aids on 10 fingers, being in the construction game myself. But he was a wonderful man and he will never be forgotten. He remarked to me how, I think his last comment to me was how you could raise 2 sons and for them to grow to be so different, that I thought was interesting. But yeah, I'm going to miss this man. I tried to live within his parameters of what was considered responsible and dignified. He was that kind of a man. We both enjoyed a drink, but he made it clear to me that you can drink yourself stupid, but nobody needed to see the ugly side of it. So more often than not, I'd wake up somewhere under a tree and dust myself down and go looking for my car and go home. And sometimes I didn't even make it to the back door. Mum would lift the kitchen blind up and I'd be crushed out in the back garden somewhere, and yeah. So that's the way it seemed to go. But I think he saw some sort of parallels between the two of us, because I worked for myself. I raised 3 kids. We both related so much together. and I'll cherish those conversations. I had many a time where I'd just go around there where I needed to talk or vent about anything, and he'd take the time to listen, and yeah, they were golden moments in my life. Yeah, I just it's hard to believe he's gone. I tried to put pen to paper how I would speak about my dad, but it just didn't take. I just it would read more like a golden book, because my youth was beautiful. I was raised under a loving, laughter-filled, cherished childhood. It was beautiful. It just couldn't get any better. I had the full support of my parents, and life was beautiful. So yeah, I don't know how. I feel like I've lost my gyro. Without my dad, I feel like I'd suddenly go wild and just go do some stupid things and go crazy, because I lived within his parameters and his ideals of how a man should be and how he should conduct himself. And yeah, so I just wanted to say hi to my sister. Hope it all sort of works out. I hope they're well. And to say goodbye to you, Dad. Yeah, that's just a hard one, but yeah, I love him to death. I love him with every ounce of who I am, and I'll continue to live the life that he would have expected me to live, in a dignified, respectful way. So I want to thank everybody for coming today. When I came to Australia in '73, I left a small group of friends as a little kid, and I met a new bunch of friends as a little kid. And I'm grateful today that my friend Wingy and my friend Shane came today. It was important to me, and I won't forget that. So thanks again. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Again, Steve, straight from there, mate, beautiful. We'll be so proud of both of you right now, so thank you so much. Obviously, the family would love you to share your memories as well, and the best time for you to do this, firstly, is when you're invited to stay behind after the service today for some tea and some coffee, and unfortunately there are some complimentary biscuits, so I'll get in there quickly before Phil does. But I think most importantly that the memories and experiences that you have of your time spent with John, that you share those now, from now on, with each other, your family, your friends, and that way you'll keep his memory inside you. It's a really important thing to do. And I think after hearing some of those wonderful stories and memories that we've heard today, it might be appropriate that we pause just for a few moments. And while we do that, we're going to watch a slideshow, just some of John's life journey. Maybe while it's playing, you can use this time to perhaps fill your minds and your hearts with your pictures of those special times that you spent with John.
There'll be bluebirds over the white cliffs of Dover. Tomorrow, just you wait and see. There'll be love and The shepherd will tend his sheep, the valley will bloom again, and Jimmy will go to sleep in his own little room again. There'll be bluebirds over the white cliffs of Dover. Tomorrow, just you wait and see. The shepherd will tend his sheep, the valley will bloom again, and Jimmy will go to sleep in his own little room again. There'll be bluebirds over the white cliffs of Dover. Tomorrow, just you wait and see.
That's a wonderful, wonderful photographs and beautiful memories. I was watching your faces actually while that was playing, and you had big smiles on. Lovely to see. To hear your laughter was lovely as well. Thank you so much for that. Now, friends, our time together here today is almost at an end, and it's time for us to now commit John's physical body from this world to the next. And I realise, and I do understand that this time of parting is probably the most difficult, but it is something that must be done. Before we do so, though, let's be grateful for the impact that John's life had on yours. Remember his smile, his laugh, his frown, his courage, his sympathy, and his love of life. Remember the significant moments and the fun times you had with John. But most importantly, remember him for the rest of your life. Now we say our last goodbye to John in grief at his death, but in gratitude of his life and the special privilege of sharing in it. We're so glad that John lived. We're glad we saw his face and felt the pressure of his hand. So let's cherish the memory of his family life and his place in history. Let's cherish his friendship, but most of all, his love. Now it's time for us to send John on his final journey and for us to say farewell. So if you're able to, could I now please ask you to stand for the words of committal? Thank you. With compassion, with deep love, and with the deepest respect, we return the body of John to Mother Earth, from where all life comes and to which all life returns. We wish him peace in eternity. He has now entered the last sleep, free of pain, free of care, and free of worry, but his spirit will live on in all those who love him, no longer bound by this world, but a part of it, no longer tied to one place, one time, but free. Every time you feel the warm sunshine on your face, every time you hear the rain softly falling outside your window, no matter where you are, no matter how far you travel in this big wide open world, John will be all around you. Continue your journey, John, with the love of everyone here, reunited now with your beloved mum Annie, your dad Tom, your brother Ralph, and your loved ones gone before you. John, may you rest in peace. Thank Thank you. Would you please be seated? Friends, that does bring us to an end, our time here today. Once again, on behalf of the family, thank you so much to each of you for attending this tribute and wonderful celebration of John's life. Before you leave the chapel today and after the immediate family has paid their last respects, you'll have the opportunity to do the same. Would you simply do this by placing a carnation onto his coffin as a mark of respect? Then, as I mentioned before, you're invited to spend some time in the lounge with the family. A wonderful opportunity for you to share some more of those wonderful stories and memories, and there's also some memorabilia out there you might like to look at on the table. But in conclusion today, I'd like to share something with you that I read recently, which I think is quite poignant. What the caterpillar perceives to be the end, to the butterfly is just the beginning. Everything has a beginning and an ending, and if you can make your peace with that, all will be well. Let's now return to our own lives, enriched and strengthened. Thank you. How did I end up here? I'm away from
EBI and all that.
Yes, a long, God, what's that one remember you from? Yeah, God, oh, such a journey since then. But yeah, oh God, yeah, but after EBI, when we had our own station, Dance 100, I did a breakfast show there for 3 years with Chris. But yeah, then God knows what's happened since then. That was in 94, I think, 93, 94 when we started EBI, when we started Dance 100. So yeah, and here I am now, doing this. About yourself, you been on a journey yourself, or? Yeah.
For the past 20 odd years.
Oh really? Okay. Yeah. No, I've never moved out that lane. I love it too much here. Yeah. I like going to Melbourne for shopping and the women, but yeah, there's nothing else.
That's still
to see. Yeah.
You out back?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.